IHMS.
The Battle of Chelanqo in Brief by Sheikh Ahmed Muhammad Kibo, narrated by Nasab Abdi and Isam Fandish. It is the month of commemoration for Hararis at home and worldwide. Lest we forget, in the calendar of minorities and diversity, the month of January is always marked as the end of diversity and the establishment of deep state in the Horn of Africa in 1880s. Concurring with Sheikh Ahmed Muhammad Kibo's, also known as Sheikh Ahmed Muhammad al-Harari, sentiments and fact findings, the young generation of diverse peoples of the Horn, including Ethiopians, must know the true and long history of conquered territories. It is only through understanding of our history that we would acquire the capacity to revive, preserve, and practice our ancestral culture, traditions, and language. Today, IHMS wants to just share historical records compiled and translated by international and Harari authors in commemoration of the fallen heroes of Harar, Oromo, Somalia, Afar, and other minority ethnic groups in the battles of 1880s and early 1900s. The Chelanqo Battle, January 1887, highlighted the end of many diverse kingdoms in patching up Imperial Ethiopia. My name is Nasab Abdi. Today is an emotional and educative day for me since I am the first generation from Kibo family in diaspora and have an opportunity to come across my grandfather's work entitled The Battle of Chelanqo in Brief. This is an excerpt from the book Ya Afar or Dinakil Inna Mirraja Arki Minch or Al-Manhal, written by Gamaluddin Ibrahim Khalil Ash-Shami and his son Hashim Ibrahim Ash-Shami. My grandfather, Sheikh Ahmed Kibo, translated the book from Arabic to Amharic, and Sheikh Kibo's son, Azam Ahmed Kibo, translated it to English. Here I am narrating the Battle of Chelanqo to know about Harar's real turbulent past, where our ancestors were harshly treated and suffered in the hands of Habasha forces. Sheikh Ahmed Kibo says, I am writing this brief history. I am writing this brief history on the Battle of Chelanqo to address the misconception of some historians who consciously or unconsciously state that Harar was captured by the Habasha soldiers with a relative ease and who fail to give adequate coverage about the battle. Among all the wars the Harari Emirate fought, the Battle of Chelanqo is where a lot of blood was spilt and highest sacrifice paid. The battle took place in December of 1887 in the plains of Chelanqo, which is about 80 kilometers away from Harar. When King Menelik became aware of the fact that fascist Italy has started preparation to invade his country, he started advanced preparation to defend it. As many historians agree, Menelik's attempt to capture Harar was as part of his advanced preparation to fend off the Italian aggression. Menelik first started entering various treaties and agreements with local rulers, sultans, and emirs for mutual benefits. The intention of this effort was not only strengthening the source of munitions for his soldiers, but was also considered to be a precautionary measure to protect his capital city from being invaded when his army marches out to defend the Italian aggression that was apparently coming soon. After maintaining peace with local rulers and sultans, King Menelik also wanted to enter a similar treaty with the king of Harar. It is to be recalled that the Harari Emirate was occasionally using opportune moment to invade the peripheral regions of Shoa. Peace treaty with the Harari government was therefore not only good to Menelik but also necessary. The prudent king therefore sent a delegation to Harar. The delegates then met with the Amir Abdullahi and his officials, but no agreement was reached. Upon their return, the delegates explained to Menelik what they saw in Harar and the fruits of their discussion. Menelik then realized that peace with Harar was not as easy as he had hoped for, and therefore wrote a strong-worded warning letter to the Amir.
According to what my uncle Mahi Kibo told me, Menelik, in addition to his letter to the Emir, also sent a handful of teff grain to imply that his army was vast. In response to Menelik's letter and gesture, the Emir is said to have sent Menelik chili pepper to indicate that though his army is smaller than that of Menelik, they are much more pungent. Upon receipt of Emir Abdullahi's response, Menelik was said to have been angered and made a decision to destroy the Harari Emirate. He ordered hundreds of thousands of strong troops. When the Emir heard about Menelik's decision to invade Harar, he called his advisors and military officials for consultation. After long deliberations, the participants unanimously agreed and assured the Emir about their unreserved willingness to die in defense of their belief and honor. A series of meetings were subsequently conducted to come up with the best defense strategy. A decision was finally made to entrench the Emir's army in the plains of Chelanqo, which is not far from the town of Harar. War was immediately declared, and this war declaration was very different from other similar declarations made by the Emirate. The declaration calls upon all Hararis, regardless of gender and age, to stand up to defend their town from an aggressor who was coming to their doorsteps to loot their property, diminish their pride, and disrespect their beliefs. Except for a few people who were left to guard the old walled city, the entire army marched to Chelanqo. The Emir's army was made up of different nationalities, including Oromos, Somalis, Argobas, and Melese army of Harar. Each group, led by its respective leader, marched to Chelanqo singing its own cultural war songs. They all settled in the plains of Chelanqo, made the required advance preparations, and started waiting for the arrival of King Menelik's army. Finally, the due date, which is dubbed Chelanqo Chel, had arrived. Chel literally means silent, and was so named because the war was so dreadful and full of casualties that one would rather not talk much about it. Menelik's large army of peasants that was forced to march all the way to Chelanqo on foot by the rulers whose outlook was tainted by expansionist policy was exposed to different types of diseases, and many of his soldiers were slain in numbers by their enemies. The entire plains were covered with human blood. The battle continued for days, and the casualties were very high. Despite their high casualty rate, the invaders had backup to replace their fallen soldiers, while the army of the Emir was much fewer and had no backup. The invaders' side subsequently started getting the upper hand. The Melisay unit that was led by the Emir was also attacked, and the Emir then ordered his army to retreat according to the plan. Some of the Melisay unit members headed to Harar to strengthen their defense line by entrenching within the city. The rest accompanied the Emir and retreated to the east with the Argoba army. The Somali army retreated to the north while the Oromo army retreated to the south. The invaders then marched to Harar to loot the city. As the city was walled to protect the inhabitants from such an invasion, and as there were warriors with adequate skill in the use of arrows and spears, Manelek's invading army could not easily proceed into the city.
Various attempts made by the invaders to penetrate the city in different directions failed. They were attacked by the entrenched brave warriors with arrows and spears and few snipers. The invaders were then forced to carry their dead and wounded back to their barricades. On the other hand, the invaders' camps often encountered surprise attacks by the brave army of Oromos and Somalis that were scattered in the north and south of the city. When Menelik realized that it was not easy to destroy the emirate and capture their king in a short time, he started negotiation through his commander-in-chief, Ras Mokannan, about peaceful surrender with the emir. After consultation with his advisors, the emir agreed with the request and further detailed negotiations into the terms of the treaty then started. After lots of discussion, the treaty was finally signed. It is to be recalled that I was teaching subject matters on Islamic religion and Arabic language in Harari Islamic School, a school that is famous for producing many young intellectuals. I later served the school as a director for over 25 years. During this period, I used to be called upon by the provincial administration to assist them in translating some works from Arabic into Amharic on a part-time basis. This job had given me a golden opportunity in getting access to books, magazines, and newspapers that were otherwise not available in the market. I also believe that this has helped me tremendously in broadening my outlook. The governor's driver once came to the school on a working day and told me that I was urgently required for translation at the governor's office. I was immediately taken to the governor's office. When I entered his office, I met the governor drinking coffee with a gentleman who was said to be an official from Addis. I was then briefly introduced to this gentleman, who then gave me a handwritten paper and asked me to read it. The paper was written with a good handwriting, and the title was written in bold letters and read, Muahadatul Chelanqo, which means the Chelanqo Treaty. When I told them the meaning of the title, the gentleman took a piece of paper and a pen and started writing in Amharic what I verbally translated from Arabic. When the oral translation was over, the gentleman took the paper from me and they saw me out. Though I did not have the chance to keep the copy of the paper, I still have a vivid memory of the paper. According to that paper, the major points of the treaty were
1. From this day onwards, the Emir is not allowed to get involved in political affairs or to arm the public with weapons. 2. The properties of the fallen soldiers who died fighting against Menelek's army shall be appropriated by the government. 3. The Emir should pay a penalty of 40,000 Maria Theresa shillings to Menelek. 4. The Emir shall also pay 30,000 rolls of cheesecloth to Menelek. On the other hand, 1. The faith and the culture of the Harari people shall be respected and the people shall continue to live in peace. 2. No one shall be allowed to boast and claim oneself to be a killer of a Harari. 3. No Harari should be lashed with a whip for penalty. And 4. No Harari shall be made to work on forced labor. After the treaty was signed and implementation started, the invaders pulled their army back and left behind only a few administrative staff and a few others who were tasked to guard the administration staff. Many among the Emir's army, especially those with the silk in the use of heavy artillery, are said to have joined Menelek's army and are also said to have fought against Italy at the Battle of Adwa. Ahmed Ali Diab, who was the head of the artillery unit, and his brother Basha Ali Diab are among those Harari soldiers who joined Menelek's army and later fought against the Italian aggression in the Battle of Adwa. Though the Harari government lost the battle, the people were not exposed to slavery, but continued to exercise their faith and live peacefully and with dignity. On the other hand, the fact that the properties of those martyrs who died in defense of their faith and pride were confiscated by Menelek had created a permanent scar in the heads of the Melese family. In Asma Din Bari, which is now called Shawabar, in Harar there's an old house known as Al Kibo House. To the south of Al Kibo's house there is a house where the family of Imet Bogalech lives, and another house in the north where the family of Kigan Azmach Tesfaye lives. My grandmother Aisha told me that these two houses were owned by two brothers, Melese martyrs, and were later appropriated by Menelek's government. My grandmother, who was blessed with age, was a close relative of Al Abdullahi Siddiq. She, like the rest of Al Abdullahi Siddiq's family, had a very good insight in the history of Harar. Al Abdullahi Siddiq was the right hand of Lij Ayasu, who played an important role in establishing strong relationship between Lia Ayasu and the Germans as well as the Turks. When Lij was finally captured, Al Abdullahi Siddiq was among Lij's officials who were detained with him and later died in prison. May Allah bless him.
My grandmother, may Allah let her soul rest in peace, was weeping when she told me about the Battle of Chelanqo. According to her, when the war was waged, the two brothers who were members of the Melese army joined the Amir's army and went to Chelanqo, leaving behind their much younger brother, Abu Bakr. The two brothers perished there and did not come back. When she lost two of her children in one battle, the heart of their mother, who single-handedly brought up her sons, was broken. In line with Harari tradition, neighbors and relatives often used to come to her to pay their respects. These people were very happy to hear the young Abu Bakr trying to soothe his mother by repeatedly telling her not to worry, as he will one day grow up and avenge the killers of his brothers. One of the mourners then told the grieving mother that she hopes, God willing, that this young boy will one day grow up and pay her back and console her. She said that this little boy, Yiki Blashal, which in Harari language means, he will console you. Hence, their mother started calling the young Abu Bakr, which is my grandfather, my Kibo, which means one who consoles. My grandmother Aisha did not stop weeping when she told me the entire story about young Abu Bakr Kibo, to whom she was later married. I believe it is injustice for historians who consciously or unconsciously try to belittle the sacrifices paid in the war. I am therefore writing this briefly to bring back to memory some of the aspects of the battle and correct some of the errors made by some historians. Sheikh Ahmed Muhammad Abu Bakr Kibo.
IHMS